We go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast, which is currently being broadcasted live on all the East West Football Network platforms. Me and my coworker, Alex Greb, we are part of the East West Football Network draft team, and today we will be giving you a special podcast episode regarding what we would do with each pick in the top 10 of the 2021 NFL Draft if it was just up to us like we were the general manager. So feel free to follow along and drop in the comments so we can address them live if you disagree or you agree or what else you would do. And right here we have all our handles on all our different social media platforms if you want to check us out and see all of our draft-related content that we have all over the place. So without further ado, Alex, welcome on. And what would you do with the first overall pick?
I mean, the first overall pick's pretty much a gimme. I think there's really no one in the world that would do anything else other than draft Trevor Lawrence, except today I did see Brett Favre said he would not draft Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall. Other than Brett Favre, I don't know anyone else who wouldn't take Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All due respect to Brett Favre, that's probably why he's not still immersed in the football industry. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, he's got everything you want. He's really tall, really athletic, great accuracy, great intangibles, senses pressure well, good rush awareness, just everywhere you want. He checks all the boxes as a future franchise quarterback. The Jaguars have their guy. That's who I would pick. That's who anybody would pick. So really where the draft starts is this second overall pick with the New York Jets. So just a reminder to everyone, General Manager Joe Douglas was retained, but there was a new head coach hired in Robert Saleh from San Francisco and a new offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur. But this is what we would do. So, Alex, if you were the general manager of the Jets with a second overall pick and their quarterback situation, what would you do?
All right, so if I was Joe Douglas or the general manager of the Jets, it would be a really close call for me. First of all, I have to go quarterback. It's between Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. And it's a really close call because, Wilson fits into that Shanahan scheme a little better than Fields does. But to me, my preference is Fields. I think, Zach Wilson probably has a little bit higher floor coming out, but I think Fields' ceiling is higher than Wilson's. And Fields is somebody that I really would want in charge of my team as a leader in my team. So I would go Fields. It's really, really close though. What about you?
I just want to say from the start, I hear some people saying, trade back, stick with Sam Darnold, acquire future assets. I cannot find a justification to do that. I just can't. Sam Darnold for me is somebody I actually liked coming out. I had a mid-first round grade on him, and over these past 3 years, he's been in a really bad situation with the coaching in New York. But he really hasn't shown anything to merit passing on really talented quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. I have both of them rated ahead of Darnold coming into the league, and they don't have those 3 years of disappointment that Darnold has. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You got to go quarterback. And like you, I would lean Justin Fields. I think that he's more battle-tested, and while maybe on tape right now, if you compare the 2020 tape from Fields and Wilson might be more impressive in terms of just consistency with accuracy and decision-making and sensing pressure, and Fields may have some issues there, especially with blitz recognition and trying to force a play sometimes. But I think that Fields just is more battle-tested. We have a larger sample size against elite competition, and I think he's got all the physical tools. And really for me, in recent years, we've seen guys like Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert come out really with raw tools, but inconsistencies in their game and stuff to clean up. And they've gotten good coaching and have become really top-level quarterbacks in this league. And I think Justin Fields actually comes into the league with less of those issues. And for me, he's a natural playmaker, and he's going to be a franchise quarterback in the next level. If I'm the Jets, that's who I'm picking.
Yeah, maybe if we just want to touch on, why, I know you said that we don't think Sam Darnold is a future quarterback of the Jets, regardless of how much more potential we think he has. I just think, it's done with the Jets. He's got to move on from the Jets, and I think he could succeed elsewhere. But I know, like you said, there's people saying, "Oh, trade back, keep Sam Darnold." There's also people saying, "Keep Sam Darnold and take Penei Sewell." And I wouldn't go that route either, just because, like you said, number one, the quarterbacks in this draft are too good to pass up. And I've heard the argument that, well, okay, yeah, the quarterbacks are great in this draft, but you have so many draft picks. Take Penei Sewell next year if Darnold doesn't succeed. Then next year you can go take a quarterback in next year's draft. And the reason you never want to bank on the players in next year's draft. You have no clue who's going to be there. You don't know what position you're going to be in next year. You don't know if you're going to have to trade up next year, and might as well utilize all these picks that you have to take as many quality players as possible to help improve that roster, because the Jets roster is not very good. So I just think these quarterbacks between Fields and Wilson, they are very, very good quarterbacks. I would say they'd be quarterback ones in most other years. So you just cannot pass that up, no matter how many draft picks you have as ammunition to trade up for the next years. You can't bank on any of that. Fields and Wilson are here. They'll be available at your pick. That they'd probably be the quarterback one next year if either of them was in the draft next year instead. So you take it, you say you get what you can get for Sam Darnold, and you move on and start over on that offense.
I totally agree. I think that argument is really flawed. As you said, right now, you're picking second overall. You have a choice of Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. You can't pass that up. So now moving to the third overall pick. If you were the Miami Dolphins, what would you be doing here?
Well, first of all, if I was the Miami Dolphins right now, I would be constantly on the phone with Houston trying to make a trade for Deshaun Watson. But that hasn't happened. We don't have any idea if that's going to happen. And we're going with what the draft order is today at the end of January. So if I were the Dolphins, it might be a little tempting to take now Fields is off the board. It might be a little tempting to take Wilson here, but you got to give Tua another shot. I think, he didn't show anything to show that he was a star last year, but there wasn't a lot to show me that he's not the franchise quarterback of the future. I think he had a year that you would expect from a rookie quarterback making a transition from a high talent college like Alabama. So if I were Miami Dolphins, I would, and staying in the pick, I would take Penei Sewell.
Now, I'm going to disagree with you, and if I were the Miami Dolphins, I would be picking a quarterback at number 3 overall. And let me tell you, this is not even a knock on Tua. I just think that the way I graded Tua last year, and for me, I had a early second-round pick, and that was mostly because he had a lot of injury issues coming out, and so I bumped the grade down for medical reasons. But even without that, the grade would not have been as high as the grades I have on Fields and on Wilson. And I actually do not like people just slandering Tua right now for his rookie year, because he really didn't have many weapons, and he played smart. He was conservative. He didn't turn the ball over much. But at the end of the day, for me, I know that I think of Fields and Wilson higher than I did of Tua last year. So for me, I'm on the phone trying to call all these teams and seeing, hey, do you want Tua? I know all the information that I had last year, so I know which teams will like Tua. And there's several teams in the back half of the first round that are really in that no man's land in this draft, but don't have a future plan at quarterback that could be interested. If you could net a late first or maybe a second round pick for Tua and take someone that I actually had rated higher than Tua coming out with either Fields or Wilson, because one of them is guaranteed to be available at 3rd overall, that's what I'm doing. It's unpopular, and by no means am I saying that Tua cannot be a franchise quarterback. I think he with the right development and with the right supporting cast, he can be. I just think higher of the 2 other quarterbacks, and I'm sitting here at 3rd overall, and I'm looking, well, I prefer these quarterbacks. So that's the pick I would make.
Yeah, that's a really great point. To me, I still think Tua has the potential to be a franchise quarterback. So if I have a quarterback and I say, you know what, I believe this guy has a potential to be a franchise quarterback, I would do everything I can to support him and help him reach the level that I believe he can. Going back to the Jets pick for a second, as the GM of the Jets, I think Darnold still has the potential, but not with the Jets. I think in order for him to become a franchise quarterback, he'd have to go elsewhere, and that's why I'm moving on from Darnold. Back to Miami for a second. I think Tua has a chance to be a franchise quarterback with Miami, so I'm going to do everything I can to help improve his situation, improve his offensive line. And I know, people say, they could go wide receiver here. I understand that. I just think the depth at wide receiver is too good in this draft to take the third overall pick and use it on a wide receiver when you have somebody like Penei Sewell available. But I definitely see what you're saying. And I think both of us would agree that the number one thing we would be doing is trying to trade this pick for Deshaun Watson. Can you agree with me on that one?
It depends on the asking price. I love Deshaun Watson. I think he's an elite quarterback, but I've heard some things saying that it's 3 firsts, 3 seconds, and a Pro Bowl level player, not quarterback player. And so I would definitely be working the phones and doing everything I can. It's just I can't mortgage the entire future of the franchise based on that. Although if it's a reasonable price, oh yeah, immediately.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially someone in Miami's situation right now. They have a really good roster. They're probably a few pieces away, I would say, from being a contender. So you can't sell the farm, you can't mortgage the future to get Deshaun Watson. I think, I'd be trying to get it down. You can make an argument that this third overall pick in this draft is worth 3 firsts on its own. So you could make the argument to Houston. You could say, look, this pick is worth 3 firsts by itself. We'll give you another first, maybe 2 seconds. Watson doesn't want to be there. Let's make the trade. But, if we have to stick in this spot, I said I'm picking Penei Sewell. You said you're picking Zach Wilson. I think we can move on to Atlanta now. So, Kosta, what would you do if you were Atlanta?
Well, it seems like I'm saying the same thing for the third time. But if Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is available, that's who I'm picking. Again, I just think so highly of these two quarterbacks as future franchise quarterbacks. And for me, when I evaluate the state of the Falcons roster, I don't think there's enough talent surrounding Matt Ryan and Julio Jones in order to make a serious Super Bowl push in this closing window that is their careers. And as harsh as it is, because I think Matt Ryan has been a really solid quarterback for a long time in Atlanta, I think it would be time to draft his successor, because the Falcons are really not a team that usually pick this high. And they're sitting here at 4th overall, and in a draft class where the top quarterbacks are just so good compared to any other year. You have 3 really good ones and a 4th that we'll discuss maybe a little later, who's also very talented. But for me, I really have to pick one of those quarterbacks and groom him behind Matt Ryan, because I just don't think they're a contender, regardless of what they do in the next couple of years at the end of Ryan's career. And if both quarterbacks somehow go 2 and 3 after Trevor Lawrence, I'm going best player available, Penei Sewell. And I'd be very happy with that if that were to happen, if I miss out on the top 2 quarterbacks or top 3.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with you here. And I'm going to agree with everything you said about Matt Ryan. He's still really good, but they don't have the pieces to be a contender within the next 2-3 years. And the problem with that is Matt Ryan probably has 4 or 5 more near elite level quarterback years left. And as hard as it is for Falcons fans to take in, I really think that you're gonna. I would take, who do I have left? Zach Wilson left. Wilson or Fields is there. But I think they just have to take Wilson and probably move on from Matt Ryan, which is unfortunate, but it's probably the best for both of them, right? The Falcons, they're in a weird stage and not a complete rebuild, but not ready to contend within the next few years. Maybe 3 years down the line, they'll be ready to go with a new young quarterback. And it's fair to Matt Ryan to say, look, we love what you've done here. We appreciate everything you've done, but we don't think we're going to be contenders within the next 3-4 years. we want you to go somewhere where you can be the most successful. And we have a comment that says here, I'll just put it up on the screen. It says, if I'm the Falcons, I'm trading down. They need to improve their defense. And I can see that rationale. But I just think that the quarterbacks are too good for the Falcons to pass up. And like you said, they're probably not going to be in this position again. Their roster, let's be honest, their roster is too good for them to have the 4th overall pick. It was a really weird year for the Falcons. They're not going to be this bad again. So you strike when the iron's hot. You take the quarterback, move on from Matt Ryan, probably move on from Julio Jones, acquire more assets that you can take some defensive players with this year and next year possibly. It's not a 1-year thing. I think they need to be looking 2, 3, 4 years down the road to say, look, we can be a contender in 2, 3, 4 years. If we get the right quarterback, we get the right pieces, we start over with a young team.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. And now to move on to the 5th overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals. For me, you've got for the first team in the top 5 that really clearly has their quarterback of the future. I think so highly of Joe Burrow. I think he's a future Pro Bowl player and even, dare I say, a Super Bowl winner because he's got that winning intangible. But so the premier thing for me is they need protection for him. I think they really, really need Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell is just such a good left tackle prospect. He's got all the athleticism, physicality, strength, mobility in the world, just amazing physical traits. And for me, I think that what they're hoping is that 3rd overall, maybe the Dolphins go wide receiver. 4th overall, maybe the Falcons take another quarterback, and then Penei Sewell sitting right there. That's what I would be hoping to happen. And if Sewell isn't there, I want to trade down. I want to trade down, and I want to target either Rashawn Slater or Christian Darrisaw. I think they're both really good tackle prospects, and they'd be solid blindside protectors for the next 10 years. 5th overall is just a little too rich for me, and I think one of them will be available if they were to drop back into that 8 to 12 range. And so if they can drop back, acquire future assets, I think that's the best route, especially if somehow one of the quarterbacks was one of the top 3 quarterbacks was still available at 5th overall pick. They could get a lot of value there. So for me, I want an offensive tackle, Penei Sewell if he's there. If not, trade down for Slater or Darrisaw.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I would hope that Sewell's going to be there, but I highly, highly doubt it. So I agree. I think they should really be targeting, like you said, Slater or Darrisaw. I agree with you. I think they're great tackle prospects, but they don't need to take them at 5. If you look, you have Philly and Detroit, 2 teams that could go a wide receiver. And, maybe there's another wide receiver needy team that says, you know what, I want to jump Detroit and Philly. Or maybe even if Detroit and Philly want the same guy and they know, or Cincinnati can convince Detroit that Philly wants the wide receiver that they want, they could, get a few, maybe a third round pick. I don't know what the price would be to jump up 2 spots for Detroit, but any draft picks that they can get and still end up getting the same player is a win. So yes, I agree. If I'm the Bengals, I'm looking to trade down, and I'm targeting Slater and Darrisaw, like you said. I would, if I had no offers on the table, I would take Slater. But I'm looking to trade down, and I'm saying I'll take either one of those guys. You need to protect Joe Burrow.
Yeah, so now moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6. They're really a heavily linked team to taking a wide receiver, maybe Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase. What would you do if you were the Eagles at number 6?
So if I were the Eagles at 6, I would take probably Jamar Chase. I think he's probably the best. My board's not fully set yet, but he's probably the best player left on the board. And I know it would be hard for the Eagles to do this, I think, because they just took Jalen Reagor at 6th overall. But if I were the GM, I'd say if I were the GM, I wouldn't have picked Reagor last year. I would have picked Justin Jefferson, and then we wouldn't be in this position. But Reagor was picked last year. If I'm the GM, I said, look, Reagor could be good, but he was a miss. He's not a first-round player. So I would take Jamar Chase. You got to upgrade that wide receiver core. It's pretty bad. So yeah, Chase at 6 for the Eagles.
Yeah, so now I'm gonna have another unpopular pick, but I would not be picking a wide receiver 6th overall if I was the Philadelphia Eagles, and that might be really surprising. But I think that there's better value at other positions, and wide receiver is the sort of position where you can find talent either in free agency or maybe in the second round. For me, I'm thinking this free agent class, I'm looking at Allen Robinson or Kenny Galladay, and I'm thinking those are two really reliable move the chains targets at wide receiver, and a rookie would be nice, but I think for me with the Eagles, they just really need a veteran receiver that can consistently move the chains for them and bring that all that experience, and that's really what they're missing in the wide receiver room. And as you said, I definitely would have picked Jefferson over Rieger, but Rieger's there, and I think Rieger does have potential. He came out pretty broad, but he does have good explosive athleticism, and you have to count on him to take that next step. So for me, I would be looking at free agency to target one of these top free agents, pair them with Rieger, and then maybe in the second round, I'm looking for a Rashad Bateman. I really like Bateman. I think that he's a good big body and great route runner to get separation despite that size. And so back to 6th overall, what I would be doing now that I've addressed the wide receiver position either in free agency or in the second round or both, is at 6th overall, I'm going either Rashawn Slater or Kwity Paye. They might both be available. In that situation, I think I'd probably take Kwity Paye because I just think he's such an elite edge prospect. He's got a really thick, compact build, really good athleticism, and he showed a great level of refinement to his game in 2020. And so I think just having that disruptive presence off the edge on a rookie contract the next 5 years, if you combine that with signing a veteran wide receiver and maybe drafting Bateman in the second round, I think that's the recipe for success and putting Carson Wentz back on track in Philadelphia. That's what I would do if I was the general manager of the Eagles.
Yeah, I definitely would address wide receiver in free agency, but why not get 2 of those guys? I mean, Carson Wentz clearly needs some help. I'm assuming that they still want him to be the quarterback of the future, judging by their head coaching hire. So why not go with 2 of those guys? Why not, maybe take Kenny Galladay and Jamar Chase, or Allen Robinson and Jamar Chase. Or I don't know off the top of my head any other free agent wide receivers, but I know this is a really, really solid free agency class. And, obviously we're doing this before free agency. So obviously after free agency, some of these picks would be different, But I think Chase is, with the Eagles at 6, I think that's probably their biggest need. And he's probably the best player on the board. So it's hard for me to pass up on my biggest need and my best player on the board, even if there are other better wide receivers to be taken in the second and third round.
Yeah, I think where we differentiate a little bit is the way my board is gonna look like. I'm going to have Paye and Slater over the 2 wide receivers. I really like Smith and Chase, but I just have a question mark on both of them. For Smith, I love everything I see on tape. But can he survive in the NFL with the frame he has? Consistently taking way more hits and way harder hits than he took in college. And with Chase, I just think that when he's facing up against the athletic corner, which he will very often in the NFL, he's not an elite separator, and that's why I really and he has really concerning lack of effort in the run game, and so that's why with both those question marks, 6th overall, I really can't do it. And considering the options in free agency and the potential of maybe trading off to the top of the second or back into the first for Bateman, I don't see the value there. I'd rather take Paye or Slater. They're much safer picks in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that Slater would be a really good pick for them, especially with they're set at right tackle with Lane Johnson for, I don't know, probably the next 4 or 5 years, I think. But at left tackle, they're struggling. So I do think Slater would be a really good pick. And I think that would be a good debate to have in the draft room with, Slater's available, let's take him. So now I think we can move on to Detroit, number 7. So what would you do if you're the GM for Detroit?
So now this is it's kind of weird on how to approach this because because right now there is news that's already broken that Matt Stafford will not be returning to the team and they're going to mutually part ways. And if I was general manager, I really would have wanted to keep Stafford because I think highly of Stafford. And I think he's just never had the coaching and the team around him to make a serious playoff push. But also, the part of the reports are that it's not the Lions getting rid of Stafford. Stafford also wants a fresh start. So I'm going to say, okay, that we're going to move away from Matt Stafford, and I got to do everything I can to get Fields or Wilson. And if that means a trade up, then that's what I'll do. I'm going to gather all my information that I have come April on how the board's going to shake out on if where I need to move up, if I need to move up. And I'm going to do everything I can to get either Wilson or Fields because I think it's time for it looks like it's time for a fresh start in Detroit. Again, I'm going to reiterate that they're both future franchise quarterbacks in my mind, and you really need to get one of them. And so they might have to move up a little bit from number 7 overall to do that.
Yeah, I agree. The number one team that I would be targeting to trade up with is probably the Dolphins at 3. I would try to do whatever I could to say, look, Miami, you have your quarterback. It's Tua. We need to move up. And I'd be willing to give up a good amount of draft capital to move up from 7 to 3. And there's argument that maybe you could take Lance here, but this is not a good spot for Lance. I think if they draft a quarterback, that quarterback's going to have to start day one. I don't even know what other quarterbacks they have on the roster besides Matthew Stafford.
Chase Daniel.
Yeah, Chase Daniels, exactly. So he's not the guy you want to put out there to start your season. The fans will be calling for Lance, and Lance needs at least a year, in my opinion, to sit and learn the game and develop and get used to the speed and the defenses and everything just because of the level of competition he played at, which, I don't want to knock him for. He played where he played. He can't really do too much about that, and he only played a season, so he's going to need to sit, learn, develop. And if I'm the GM in Detroit, I'm saying, look, even if I think he has potential, I think his potential will be ruined if he has to start day one. And if, in Detroit, that's probably what's going to have to happen. So I'm doing everything I can to move up to 3 with the Dolphins.
I agree. I think that it's not the right place for Lance because you need a quarterback there who you can play that full first year while you develop Lance. And that you won't have the pressure from the organization and from the fans to put Lance in prematurely and really stunt his development. But that transitions us into the 8th overall pick, the Carolina Panthers. And if I was the general manager of the Carolina Panthers, I would be selecting Trey Lance. It's a little higher than where my grade's going to end up, but this is where the situation makes me really comfortable with this pick. Teddy Bridgewater is the type of quarterback that I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with. He's just not dynamic enough, but he will certainly play well enough for a full year to be able to have confidence in the team during that year to not fall apart, and you won't be having all that pressure to put in Lance because, as you said, Lance he's first of all, he's a really athletic, dynamic thrower and runner, great dual threat. And he really limits his turnovers too, which is crucial for a developmental prospect to be able to maybe have those growing pains when he eventually hits the field, but he's not a turnover machine, so he's not going to get pulled. You're going to allow him to play and grow. And for me, that's what Trey Lance is going to do. And he really has such high upside. He can almost not revolutionize because we've seen guys like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, but he could be the next in that mold. And I think he has the potential to be, might I say, a better thrower than both of them. He's just a one-year starter from the FCS with inconsistent footwork, so that's why he needs his full year to develop. You've got Teddy Bridgewater. You've got job security if you're Matt Rule. So if I'm the general manager, I'm going ahead. I'm trusting the development and the coaching. I'm drafting Trey Lance if I'm the Panthers.
Oh, yeah, totally. I agree. I think, if you looked at all 32 teams in the NFL and look at them in draft order, this is one of the best 2 or 3 situations.
I'd say the best
for Trey Lance to go. I think you can make the argument that San Francisco would be a better fit.
Yeah.
You have Jimmy Garoppolo. You can say, look, we're not getting rid of you. You're stuck here this year. But we're not talking about the 49ers. We're talking about the Panthers. And I think behind San Francisco, this is the best place for Trey Lance to go. Like you said, Teddy Bridgewater, he's not a quarterback you can win a Super Bowl with. He's a quarterback that can start for a year. You saw it. They started him this year, and they went 5-11, which was a little underwhelming. I would expect them to be better with Teddy Bridgewater this year, maybe in the 6-10, 9-7 range. But even if they don't have a good record, he's a guy that you can keep as a starter all year. He's a guy that I don't really think the fans will revolt against too much. If you're Detroit, like we said, Detroit's Chase Daniels, the fans would go after them. But everybody likes Teddy Bridgewater. I think you could let him sit for the year. And if I'm the GM, I'd take Trey Lance and I'd say to Matt Rule, we're not starting him this year at all. Go ahead, say it in press conference. He needs at least a year to develop. Teddy Bridgewater is our quarterback for at least the next 16 games. And hey, if we go 5-11 again with Teddy Bridgewater, that's fine with me because that just puts us in a better spot next year to pick a better player to probably help out Trey Lance on the offense.
Yeah, I just love the whole plan. The situation just screams the perfect fit for Trey Lance. So now I'm going to move on to the 9th overall pick with the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to ask, why is this not a team rumored to go get one of these top 4 quarterbacks? And specifically the top 3, because I think they're in Detroit's situation where there is no bridge quarterback on that roster. And so I'm seeing a lot of defensive players mocked to the Broncos, and there are impact defensive players that would be good additions for them. But Drew Lock is not a franchise quarterback. I'm sorry to break it to whoever still has a glimmer of hope for him, but I don't think you'll ever get out of him that risky play style, that gunslinger mentality that results in too many turnovers and too many missed shots. And for me, I'm seeing the talent at the top of the quarterback class, and I'm working the phone and doing everything I can to get either Fields or Wilson, because for me, the Broncos just they need to get that franchise quarterback, because I don't think he's on the roster. If no one wants to trade with them, which is obviously it's a real possibility, and they have to stay put and miss out on those top quarterbacks, I would be which player would I go? I'd hope Kwity Paye is there. If Paye is there, then he's the guy I'm picking, because I'm thinking Von Miller is getting kind of old. So if you can have Paye and Bradley Chubb for years to come, coming off the edge, oh boy, I think that's great. And with a couple of years of Von Miller left, so that could instantly make the defense really good. Otherwise, I'd be looking maybe even the offensive line with Slater or Darisaw, or maybe a corner like Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. But I'm doing everything I can to trade up for a quarterback, either Wilson or Fields.
Yeah, I agree. No one's really mentioned it. I think everyone just kind of assumes that Drew Lock is getting another year. And like you said, I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I don't think he's really shown very much at all that he has a chance to be a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, I don't really like saying that about guys, because this is their livelihood, but it is what it is. He's not a franchise quarterback. But I think Denver's in a really weird spot to try to move up, because I think you're going to have teams probably like Detroit trying to get up in the top 3. Carolina could try to jump up into the top 3 too. I think, Atlanta is going to want to probably try to get at one of the quarterbacks. So you really have to move up to 3. And if I'm Miami, I don't want to move down to 9. I think probably there's a possibility the top 3 offensive tackles could be gone by pick 9. So if I'm Miami, that's what I want to target. And I don't want to move past number 7. So I just think it's going to be really hard for Denver to move up for a top quarterback. So assuming that none of the 3 are available, I don't think Lance would fit here in Denver. I would have to go Kwity Paye. There's a possibility he's gone, so I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that he falls to 9. If he doesn't, I would probably go Patrick Surtain. I think that their secondary is, it's not what it was a few years ago. I think Surtain can be a great addition to that secondary. And And Denver's just like a defense first mentality team. And I think they really thrive from having a really good defense, especially at home, playing up a Mile High where, the air center, some of the offenses struggle a little bit. So if you have a defense, one with Kwity Paye that can get after it and get after the quarterback and rush the passer, I think that'd be huge. But I also think Patrick Surtain having a really good corner would just help the pass rush. So I think either way, I'd either go Kwity Paye if he's there or Patrick Surtain if Paye's gone.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that we've got some comments on the side. So I think right after this next pick, we can pop those one by one and answer people's questions and react to their comments once we finish the discussion. So real quick, 10th overall, we've got the Dallas Cowboys picking, and for me, I think this is really similar because I think they really need to go best player available on offensive line or defense. They've got, for me, I'm bringing back Prescott. I think a lot of people are agreeing with that. Zeke can definitely get back to prior level or at least close to it, and they've got a really nice trio of receivers. So for me, it's offensive line or defense. Kwity Paye if he's there, or Rashawn Slater, or Christian Darrisaw, or Surtain. I think that you can't go wrong with any of those picks. So that's what I would do for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. Once you get down to pick 10, pick 11. We're not going to be discussing that. But once you get down there and you're doing what would you do if you were the GM? There's not really one pick that I can say I would go because there's a possibility of some of these guys being gone. So we kind of have to throw out a few names that we say, all right, we'll have them in this order, and we'd take this guy if he's available. If not, we'll go to the next guy. So I think number one, if Kwity is there, I'm taking him. And then two, probably Patrick Surtain. I'm assuming Slater's going to be gone.
Well, you can't be sure of that.
Okay, so let's say Slater's not gone. So Slater would probably be one, and then Paye, and then that's a toss-up. I don't think my board's set. So either one of those two, I don't think you can really go wrong with that. And if both of those guys are gone, I'd go Surtain and Darrisaw. And I think any one of those four guys, I think, will be an instant upgrade for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think they can't go wrong with either of those four picks. But, there's really no GM in Dallas. Jerry Jones runs the show. So who knows what's going to go on with Dallas at number 10. So like you said, I think we have a few questions, and I wanted to hold off on them till the end because I didn't really want to mess up the flow of the picks 1 through 10. So I think we can answer some of the questions now. So the first question, I'll just put it up. Who do you think Green Bay should pick? So Green Bay had a tough end to their season yesterday. And if I'm Green Bay at 29, now it's really hard to go one guy, but I'm looking to probably go wide receiver. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope Bateman's there. I think he could be a great addition to that offense. But I also think you could maybe target an offensive lineman here. I think what you gave me that face.
They've got a great offensive line. I think they it's wide receiver or if anything else, maybe a corner because we saw Kevin King get burnt a lot. I think the offensive line is the strength of the team along with Aaron Rodgers.
Well, the problem is Corey Linsley is a free agent, and he might leave.
It's a really talented O-line class. You can get one later. I think that sitting there at 31, it's you're or 29. my bad, not the Super Bowl. But for me, I'm hoping Bateman's there. If not, I'm doing a lot of research on Kadarius Toney, and I'm because I've heard there's some character issues on him. Those need to check out, and I need to be confident that he can really put in the work to develop and become a complete receiver. But just thinking of having Devontae Adams as that really reliable move the chains receiver, and then an explosive field stretcher who should evolve into a more complete receiver than and more reliable than Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That would really be a big plus for the Packers. So that's what I would be looking at.
Yeah, I agree. I think wide receiver is the number one priority here. But at 29, who knows who's going to be there? I think probably the top three corners are going to be gone. Horn might be available, probably not. It's probably still a toss up right now. So they probably could go Horn, but I'm just thinking if Corey Lindsey leaves in free agency, a guy that I would target. I know it's kind of a toss up with some people, but I would target Creed Humphrey there if Corey Lindsey leaves in free agency. If not, then obviously you don't need a replacement for him, and you cross your fingers and hope that you get a wide receiver. But they should have done that last year, and they should have done that the year before.
Yeah. So if you want to pop up the next question, we can move on, I think, now.
Yeah. So we have it's more of a comment. It says, so I'm assuming
I'll address this one because I was the one who made the comment. I do think Joe Burrow is going to win a Super Bowl one day. It won't be anytime soon because the Bengals are just so far from it. But we saw what Burrow did at LSU. Granted, he had a lot of talent, but people were saying that in February of the year before, everyone around the LSU organization believed that they were going to win a national title. They were going to put all the work into it, but that it was going to happen. And that was all Joe Burrow. He came into that program, galvanized everyone, and just instilled so much belief in them. I think his intangibles and his personality are just he's a winner. And for me, I think that they're going to trend in the right direction. And at some point down the line, I see Joe Burrow winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I really love Joe Burrow's attitude about everything. And I think my favorite Joe Burrow moment is the interview he had with a reporter before the national championship game. Not right before, but it was a few days before, after he'd won the Heisman. And the reporter holds up a picture of Joe Burrow. He's probably, 8 years old. And the reporter says, do you think this looks like a Heisman Trophy winner? And Joe Burrow looks at her and he says, damn right he does. And she goes, what would you say to this kid now? And he goes, looks like a national champion too. And that is probably my favorite Joe Burrow moment ever, and that probably will be. And just that attitude that he has is just infectious. And he's going to be a guy, maybe the team around him isn't necessarily a Super Bowl favorite quality, but he just has that charisma and just that drive and the ability to get everyone around him motivated and believing that they're going to win a Super Bowl. So I agree. I think Joe Burrow will win a Super Bowl before his career ends. So I think the last question that we have is, where do we see Kyle Trask going? And do you want to address this one first, or
this is such a difficult question to answer. I think Kyle Trask's range is so wide, but at this point in the process, I don't think he's going to be a first rounder. I think I just don't think a team's going to want to bank on him being a first rounder. He doesn't have the physical traits to be a first rounder, and he doesn't have the mental flawlessness that, say, Joe Burrow has to make up for a lack of top-level physical traits in order to be a first rounder. He's just, not round one mental game and not round one physical traits for me. And then that's where you get into that weird zone of not many quarterbacks go in the second round, because if you like a guy that much, you usually take him in the first. So, and he's not really that like Jalen Hurts type skill set to go in that range. I could see a draft day fall for Kyle Trask. I could see him slipping like say Mason Rudolph did in like the mid round 3 area. I wouldn't be shocked. I just think that he's not going to be projected as a franchise quarterback, and that means that if that's the case, then nobody's going to want to take him before then. So whether or not the media catches on to that by the draft, I think it could happen that he could end up sliding that far. But really, his range is quite wide.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you with my evaluation of him. I have him as a third round grade on him, and I just don't see it. I think his draft value is probably blown up by the media, like you said, more than what the teams actually think about him. But all it takes is for one team to fall in love with him and take him at the end of the first round. So I'm going to say that his range is probably 32. And no, the Chiefs will not be picking Kyle Trask, but it's what happened with Lamar Jackson a few years ago, where a team trades up to 32, a team that falls in love with Kyle Trask and says, we want that 5-year, the 5th-year option, so we're going to take him at 32. If I was GM of any of these 32 teams, I would not take Kyle Trask. But I think, where do we see him going? I think there's a possibility he goes at 32. If he doesn't go in the first round, like you said, I do not see him going in day 2. I mean, in round 2, I see him going probably, maybe mid to late 3rd round. So I think it's not as much as a range as it's a jump, right? If a team falls in love with him, they'll take him at the end of round 1. If not, I highly, highly doubt he's going to go round 2. So it's the end of round 1 or round 3 for me.
It's possible that he goes in round 2, but it's just, again, if a team likes him that much, it would probably be in the first round. And so I think that just about wraps it up on what we would be doing if we were the general manager of these top 10 teams. And remember, if you like the content, make sure to subscribe and watch on YouTube, or you can listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And we've also, on our Instagram page, which is probably our main platform, we've got so much draft-related content, churning out about 3 to 4 posts a week, 2 scouting reports a week, and feel free to DM us and tell us who you want to see up there. And we've got mock drafts, bold takes. We're going to have scout versus scout analysis. And right now we have a Senior Bowl preview up, and we'll definitely – our next podcast episode next week will be a Senior Bowl review. And so we're excited for you to join us then.
Yeah, like Kosta said, be sure to check us out, Bold Take Scouting on Instagram, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and then Bold Take Scout on Twitter. And then, of course, be sure to check out the East West Football Network on their website and all their platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter again. So thanks to everyone who tuned in. Thanks to everyone who's going to be listening on the podcast. And have a good night, everybody.